What's going on, everyone? My name is Under the Radar and welcome back to the Draft League Viabilities. Now, I realize it's been pretty well accepted that I'm doing one video of this a week. People have been giving me some really positive feedback saying that one video a week is better than no videos a week, and I completely agree. So I'm so glad that all of you have supported my decision to make this video, or this series, only one day a week. But guys, of course, I do upload to this channel a lot, so if you do want to watch other content that I do create, please make sure you go back onto the channel and watch all of that other stuff. I'm currently in the process of doing 2 draft leagues. I'm about to do a Let's Play coming up onto the channel, so please be on the lookout for that. I really would enjoy, and I would really appreciate all of the support on the channel. But guys, this video is a video that I'm going to really enjoy talking about because it is about a Pokemon that I thoroughly enjoy. And that Pokemon is Garchomp. Okay, so I really wanted to talk about this one right after Mega Diancie because I think the two of them together are a fantastic pair. However, I think that any dragon type with Mega Diancie is a great Pokemon. For example, Como-o I think is great, Dragonite, Salamence, any of them. But I wanted to talk about Mega Garchomp. I wanted to talk about regular Garchomp for a very specific reason. Garchomp in this generation, in Generation 7, before Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon comes out, has so many roles that it can fill in such an easy form of any team. So obviously, as in Gen 6, there are the exact same roles that it could fill back then, as in like a bulky rough skin Rocky Helmet user. It was very good at being a phaser, a stealth rock setter, and all of that other stuff. And by all of that other stuff, I mean like a bulky support role. Having 108 HP, 95 defense, and 85 SPDF, it is a very good bulky pivot to be able to come in, stop U-turners from being able to U-turn on you for free, get off some really good chip damage, and then put yourself into a position to where you can really like succeed from just Garchomp specifically being able to wear down your opponent's team. On top of that, in Generation 6, it was also a very good Choice Scarfed Pokemon. It was a very good offensive threat. It was something that you had to prep for because it does have some very good coverage with the likes of Poison Jab, Stone Edge, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Fire Fang, Fire Blast, Draco Meteor. It was a very good offensive threat, specially or physically. On top of being a very good physical or special threat, that gave the option to Choice Specs, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Life Orb, Expert Belt. It had every single role that you could fill. It wasn't superior at doing any of them. It was just good at all of them, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, for example, a superior mon that can fill multiple different roles is a mon like Jirachi. It is superior, or Manaphy is an even better example. It is superior at being a very good setup sweeper. It is superior at being a good bulky pivot. It is superior doing a lot of things, while Garchomp, everything it can do can be done better by another Pokemon, but it can still do them all pretty well. However, in Generation 7, I believe that Garchomp was one of the best dragon types that that had a change from Gen 6. This is of course excluding Salamence and Dragonite, which are arguably the best just because of Z-moves, but I think that Garchomp got better because of a bunch of different factors. One big factor is the fact that in 7th generation, the speed gap grew exponentially. A lot of mons that were introduced in Gen 7 did not have this this middling speed tier of like the 105 to like 95 range, so that base 102 speed became even better. More mons that were drafted from Generation 7, Garchomp could either outspeed or outbulk. On top of that, the 50% berries that weren't around in Gen 6, they're now around in Gen 7, and that means that Garchomp that could lose its health pretty rapidly using Rough Skin and Rocky Helmet now is able to get 50% of its health back one time in the game and able to wall something else again that it was able to be weakened for earlier in the game. While yes, there are a lot of mons that benefited from the 50% berry, I think Garchomp and the dragons benefited the most. Let's go ahead and talk about its offensive prowess in Gen 7 because I think that was also very much impacted by a lot of what can happen from Gen 7 specifically, and that is because of Z-moves. Z-moves in Gen 7 affected Garchomp in a different way than it did from Salamence and Dragonite, because Salamence and Dragonite, they needed a good flying stab to make them almost the scariest mons to have to face. Garchomp still had all of this very hard-hitting moves, but now it can have all of that coverage on a hard-hitting move on top of an absolute nuke button to take care of a threat, whereas Salamence and Dragonite, they can have like a Z fly, but then after that they don't have a move that's very good, while Garchomp, it can have Earthquake, Stone Edge, Fire Blast, Draco Meteor, Outrage. It can have all of these hard-hitting moves on top of the Z move nuke button, and I think that has made Garchomp very, very good this generation. So what does Garchomp not do very well? I think that Garchomp, its biggest weakness is the fact that so many mons are going to know that Garchomp can switch in on them, and it can go for a hidden power ice, a coverage ice beam, anything like that, and it can get weakened pretty easily, and it does force you a lot of times to run Yache Berry, unless you're using it as like an offensive set, of course. So because of that, its biggest weakness is the way that it's very predictable to wear down with Stealth Rocks, a layer of spikes, even toxic spikes, and then just random ice coverage on things that might be able to switch into it. For example, a non-sheer force Tauros, so that is coming off of base 40 special attack with a naive nature, no special attack investment, and Ice Beam does 45 to 54% to uninvested Garchomp. So that means that a very weak Ice Beam coming off of it, just expecting to switch, can easily weaken Garchomp and make it a not so good of a check. So I think Garchomp's role in 7th gen has shifted from a more bulky offensive dragon type Pokemon to a very offensive dragon type Pokemon, and I think that if you're going to draft Garchomp, you need to draft around it as such, instead of being like, okay, I have Garchomp, I have a very good rocker, rough skin Rocky Helmet user, very good physically defensive pivot. I don't think that's how it can be used anymore. I think it can be more so used as a very good like speedy pivot, maybe like a max HP max speed type bulky pivot, but I don't think it can be used as much as it could in past generations. Yes, a lot of past generation Pokemon also had the exact same problem, but with 7th generation access to Z moves, so Sub-Zero Slammer is something that can be ran on any Pokemon that could get Ice Beam to absolutely nuke it. You have things that can also take advantage of it. You have a lot more Pokemon in Generation 7 that can run coverage moves to hit it. Like for example, Serena, that you might be like, I can switch in Garchomp because I'm running a special Garchomp this week. Well, it can run Play Rough, and even I've ran a Serena before that can always guarantee break a sub from physically defensive Zygarde 50%. So it's very possible for it to also be able to weaken Garchomp very easily just by clicking Play Rough on it and being able to weaken it that way. So I do think that the power shift in Gen 7 has really hurt Garchomp, but I don't think it's hurt it to the point where it's made it a poor dragon type or it's made it like a worse dragon type. I feel as though it's made it just to where its usage has shifted in a way, and I think that's a good thing, honestly. I think Garchomp has always been an amazing offensive dragon type Pokemon, but it's just taken this more of an offensive shift to make it more obvious, in my opinion. One thing that I think Garchomp will also struggle with a lot are just bulky water types in general. Granted, with Z moves, Tectonic Rage, you have SD, you can have Z Sandstorm to boost its speed, and you can still have like Earthquake and SD and things like that. It is possible for them to break through, but most bulky water types can always carry Ice Beam and things of that nature. So if you are going to draft Garchomp, I do strongly suggest that you draft a couple of ways to deal with fairies and bulky water types. So one core that I'm very fond of, that I've always wanted to draft, is a Tapu Koko, Garchomp, Alolan Raichu core. That gives you 3 very offensive mons that can break through each other's weaknesses. For example, with Alolan Raichu having Surge Surf or being able to outspeed everything, you can run Modest Life Orb, and then you can run Surf to weaken other ground types that might otherwise wall Tapu Koko plus Alolan Raichu. You have Garchomp, which can weaken ground types, that can weaken fire types, that can weaken poison types, that can be able to switch into fairy type moves from Tapu Koko. You have Psychic on Raichu to be able to weaken poison types for Tapu Koko. You have this very good offensive core that can also pivot around very well because of Tapu Koko's U-turn and Volt Switch, Alolan Raichu's Volt Switch, and then dropping in Garchomp, and then if Garchomp is your Z-move user, being able to nuke something with a Z-move. I think those 3 together form a very unique offensive core that I have not yet seen drafted, but I do think that those 3 would be very, very cool. As a defensive support to it, I think a bulky water type is a necessity. I think it is the one thing that if you draft Garchomp, you need to make sure you have a really good bulky water type to be able to switch into things like Weavile and Mamoswine. And a bulky water type, I don't mean something like Empoleon. Granted, Empoleon has a special place in my heart, but I do not think that Empoleon is that good at supporting Garchomp as an offensive or a physically defensive or especially defensive or a pivoting mon, because Empoleon can't take low kicks. It can't take many knockoffs from a Weavile. It can't take earthquakes from a Mamoswine. So you need a very good bulky pivot that can easily do it. Now, some of these could also change. You could like Rotom Wash if you don't decide to go with the Tapu Koko plus Alolan Raichu core. That gives you your Volt Switcher to get into your Garchomp as an offensive mon. It also gives you a ground immunity, so you don't have to worry about Mamoswine spamming Earthquake against you, along with being able to resist Ice Cold Crash. You're able to use things like putting a Z Crystal on Rotom to make it so that way the knockoff damage is consistently weaker every single time. So you're able to have a good check to what really threatens out Garchomp, and that is priority Ice Shard users, along with having really good means of revenge killing it. You can have a way to switch into those revenge killers pretty easily, and I do think Rotom Wash does a good job with that, but also the very stereotypical bulky water types, Manaphy, Milotic, things of that nature, even Mega Blastoise to an extent, because it can switch into Weavile pretty easily. Not so much Mamoswine because Earthquake still does hurt, but it's still very, very possible. I'm going to tell you now, I do not think that if you are going to draft Garchomp, I do not think that you should draft a fatter team. I think you should draft a more balanced team with some good wall breakers, a very good cleaner, a very good offensive core, and then some good wall cores. A very good balanced draft works really well with Garchomp, because Garchomp can fit in and fill any one of those roles that you might not have that week. If you're running a balanced team and one of your walls does not do very well, but Garchomp matches up pretty well, you can put it in that slot as a bulky mon. You can put it in the slot as a physically defensive mon. You can put it in as an offensive mon, and it can fill multiple different roles, and I think that works out best. Whereas if you draft a very fat team, very fat team, Garchomp more than likely is going to be your offensive mon, and Garchomp is not easy to wall, but it's still able to be walled, and you're going to struggle. If you draft a super hyper offensive team, you're going to be bringing Garchomp as defensive more times than you would like, and it's going to be very easy for your opponent to know that and weaken it more so than you would expect. So I don't think that very fat or super offensive drafts are good for Garchomp. I think a nice balanced draft is the best. With all of this being said, my personal feelings, I love Garchomp. I think it is a great mon, and I think it's a mon that if it goes round 1, I think the person is smart for taking it because it is a good round 1 pick. However, with that being said, I'm still going to give this mon a very solid A-. I think that A- is good. I would give it a B+. Like A- B+ range I think is perfect for Garchomp. It can make or break some teams. But it definitely has this role of mystery about it, and it all comes down ultimately to what your playstyle is and how you draft around it. But overall, Garchomp on its own I think is like a B+, A- Pokemon. Well guys, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you all again so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Make sure you leave a like for me, leave a comment letting me know what you think of Garchomp down in the comments below. Also, leave me suggestions for Pokemon in the future. I have not come up with anything for future weeks. I'm going to try to bulk some of them out whenever you guys are seeing this, so make sure you guys leave a comment letting me know what you would like to see in the future. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you all again so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.